Hey, so welcome. We are on a trip today and we're going to do a little hike and we're going to be testing out the Sigma 13 to 50 millimeter and the Sigma 30 millimeter, as well as my Sony A6700. So come and join us on this hike and we're going to get some cool shots and some cool content, and then we'll go some other places and get some other cool shots, some cool content. See you there. All right, so at the end of the trail, at this point, I'm gonna go in to the little cavern where there's some cool things there you'll see. So I'm gonna have a drone follow me in, and then we're gonna get some shots in there.
3, 2, 1.
Let's go. All right, so here we are. So we have the 18 to 50 millimeter right here, and just getting into the different pieces of art around here is so simple, so easy. Focus so quick on my new camera, but the lens is just spot on, hits focus every single time. Very happy with it. We're going to crack out the 30 millimeter in a moment, but been loving the zoom on the 50. Now for the record, I don't exactly agree with all the graffiti here, but since it's here and it looks cool, I'll take pictures of it. Cool place. Not many people know about this, so let's go check out some more. My favorite one for sure is the lion. And for a long time it was just the lion that was here. You can see how they've used the rock. And on the waterfall right here, there's actually a rope so you can go up higher and then get access to the mountains above. But I ain't going up there. My kids are down here, my wife's down here. We can climb up there. So there you go. Let's head back and we'll keep shooting some stuff as we go along. But this is the cave where the lion sleeps. Just made that up. All right, so this is the 30mm. We've used a little bit in the cave with pictures and now some video on the way back. So we are heading back, 30mm staying on there. So you'll get the opposite trip with this lens. And that was fun. A little bit of Vegas that most people don't know exists, but let's head back and then we'll go back to the office and we'll talk a little more. And there's gonna be some other places we're gonna take this lens, so. Hey, Han, what do you think?
I can't really see the screen because it's so dark.
And this is called give the camera to the wife test and see if you can keep it stable.
I can't. I cannot see the screen.
Yeah? Look good?
Yeah, it does.
All right, guys, so welcome back to the office. You just seen my hike that happened a couple of weeks ago to the cave. Since then, we've been on the Las Vegas Strip, taking a whole bunch of sites in. We've been to a ghost town, we've done product shoots, lots of family stuff, and also CES, as well as my wife's cake business. So lots of things that we've used these two lenses for. Now, what I would say right off the bat, when we did the hike, I did not have a variable ND filter. Now I have the variable ND filter. I needed the step up rings, and I quickly realized when I was on the hike to the lion cave, I had to really crank my shutter speed to get darker images because I didn't have the filter on. So step one, filter. Now here's my big preface for this whole thing. I'm not a professional videographer. I'm not a professional photographer. I would certainly class myself more as a videographer than a photographer. These lenses really give me feeling, or the desire, let's even call it, let's say the desire to take more pictures in different locations, different places, knowing I was testing out the two lenses and really wanting to showcase what they could do. So again, 30mm, 18 to 50. I know I messed up on the video and put and said 18 to 13 to 50mm something, but 18 to 50. Again, caveat, I'm coming to this of I own Sony A6700, Sony ZV-E10, this one, and I have a 16mm from Sigma. I have a 16mm from Sigma on both my cameras. So my question was at that point, where do I go next? What lens do I get next? And have I done professional work? Yes. Have I done YouTube stuff? Of course, yes. Product stuff, all these different things I've shot on these cameras with a 16mm, primarily ZV-E10, but the biggest question was, what lens next? And then Sigma, thank you so much for allowing me or sending me these on loan. So I don't get to keep them, but they also give me an extension so I could really use them, test them out, and create as good a video as I possibly could with them. And you will see more from what I've found, what I've got. They sent me these two lenses, and the question was zoom or another prime. And for me, really between the two, 30mm prime or the 18 to 50mm, which one was going to be my next one. Aperture on this one, 1.4 is the lowest. Aperture on this one, 2.8. Just double checking myself here. In all honesty, I went into this whole testing thinking the 50mm was going to be probably the one I was the most interested in, and in reality it was. I wanted to see which one made the most sense for my next lens. And the good news is, chances are I'm probably going to be buying the 18 to 50mm 50mm is my next lens. My wife really liked it. Doing some of her business photography for her cakes, I kept reaching for the 50mm. So this zoom lens really came into play. And then the fact that obviously you've got 1.4 aperture on the 30mm and 1.4 on the 16mm, beautiful shallow depth of field. And if it's there, I love to use it, and I probably need to learn a little bit better of when to use it and when not to use it, and when to maybe crank it up a little bit. But I love the shallow depth of field. 2.8 I think is more than enough. Would I like lower? Maybes. You get a beautiful separation of the background with the bokeh on the 50mm on the zoom lens, and the fact that it's consistent, because Sony's kit lens is what, a 16 to 50mm. So pretty similar, but the biggest difference is right here. 3.5 to 5.6 f-stop or aperture. And that pretty simply means that as you go from the 16mm to the 50, your aperture gets smaller, and that means your image gets darker. Now this may be a power zoom, great, but that changing in the aperture, you can tell when you're punching in on something, the image clearly gets darker. When I first started, I didn't have a clue how or why. It just happened. But now I know the reason, because kit lens, and they don't fix the aperture. Now Sigma have basically said, no, our 2.8 aperture on the zoom is consistent through all of its millimeters, through 18 to 50. And as a videographer first, that was fantastic. But using this for photography, having that little bit more of a reach, punching in and basically being in one position and go, you know, here's maybe a 35mm, here's 50mm, and then bringing it back to 18, getting different perspectives from the same standpoint, as well as keeping that 2.8 aperture. Perfect. Essentially, you can say which one's right for you, which one was right for me. And I've already given my hand away, and the 50mm, the zoom lens, is at this point the right one for me. But the 30mm, obviously, I had to really concentrate and really actively decide I'm going to use the 30mm. There's a couple of points where I use this. So the second part of the hike you saw, I switched over to the 30mm. A couple of other instances, but also the shoot here, which was we were taking my family around because I've had family in town and being around there, and I purposely just took this with me. This is the only lens I had, the 30mm. I'm like, this is going to be the only lens for this. And I loved the pictures I got from it, but still I really wanted the zoom. So I kept going back to this, but I forced myself a couple of times to keep with the 30mm, and we did. And what can I say? I've been testing them out for well over a month now, and all these different scenarios and all these different, and again, not a professional photographer. So all the pictures that I'm going to pull up and show throughout the video, I'm sure anyone who has a interest or is well versed in the photography world, they could probably pick apart every single picture I've taken, the color grading I've done on some of them, the adjustments I've made on some of them. I'm sure people are going to look at them and say, you could do this, you could do that. So comment sections for that. But the caveat is, I'm not a professional. So let's just say as an amateur, right? If that's you, you're an amateur or a professional, but you want a different look for your shots, then the ghost town I took the lenses to, again, I pretty much stuck with the zoom lens, but I got some pictures there that I think it looks very professional. I was looking for different shots and different, interesting aspects. One here of the bug, the VW bug, and I just think that looks great. There's a crashed airplane there. There is a chapel there, and I used the 50mm for all these shots, and I just think I was pretty proud of them as a non-photographer. Now, have I done photography in the past? In school, yes, that's a long time ago. And I just think the 50mm, the zoom lens, really give me a lot of options and variability with my shots, and to punch in, punch out whenever I needed to. And I think they look great as a non-professional. And if that's you, this could do the same thing for you. So there's that. Now, if you don't have a prime lens, I've obviously gone with a 16mm, and I've bought two of them, so that's how much I love them, and I really do. But the 30mm, yes. Obviously, being there, it's a little bit more punched in, and I'm using it on an aps-c sensor, right? So there's a little bit of a crop in there anyway. So on a 30mm, really, it's close to a 50mm, which, and now actually, let's do the math. And just to be a little bit more precise, it's 45mm, but it's close to 50, right? So people say 50mm, the nifty 50 is very similar to what your eye sees. And then, so once I put the zoom lens into roughly a 30 to 35, which is about there, as I'm zooming in. So roughly this spot, it gets it close to the 50mm that my aps-c sensor combined with the 35mm would get. In that focal range again is just similar to what your eye sees. So if you're looking for a prime lens, you just got to know that 30mm obviously is a little bit more punched in than maybe is a wider 16mm, which is really the equivalent of about a 24. So just something to consider, but I love my 16mm and would recommend it every single day of the week. But 30mm is an alternative. And if you don't mind changing lenses out, then a great option. For me, I just liked the convenience of throwing this on and keeping it on. So when I went to CES, walking around, I didn't want to be going in my bag and rooting around. There's just so much to see and do, so many people around, that I just stuck with the zoom lens the whole time. And for most instances, I did. I can say typically the 50mm is the one that stayed in there the most, but I'm very happy to have had the comparison. And lucky enough, let's say, that Sigma did loan me these so I could have that comparison. So I wasn't putting my cold hard cash into a lens and then thinking, should have got something different. I would be very interested actually with a full frame lens that Sigma does. That's I can't remember the lowest end, but I think the highest end is 70mm. So I'd be very curious to see how that one is. Now that's a full framed lens. Has a few more bells and whistles on it because of it, the fact that it's full frame. So maybe Sigma we'll figure that one out. But that would be a good comparison to see between the 50mm and then the 70mm, and the fact that this is an aps-c sensor and that one's a full frame sensor. So something to think about and to consider. Both are solid in low light. And I'm trying to think of the scenarios now that would be considered low light. CES for sure, family stuff, behind the scenes of a photo shoot that I did with my wife as models. But I got my cameras out and I did a couple of low light tests with actually which one was that? That would have been the 50. Yeah, that would have been the 50, the zoom lens. But 30mm, fantastic prime lens. This zoom lens, probably one of my favorites at this point. And again, I love the 60mm, but probably one of my favorites. At the end of the day, both lenses are awesome. And I really can't thank Sigma enough, but also recommend their products. Their prices are very affordable. I've always seen the fact that if a lens is less than the price of the camera, you're on the right lines. And I've had two cameras, the ZV-E10 and the A6700, you would probably say are relatively cheap on the scale of cameras. And my 16mm, that one, and the 30mm for that point, just great prices. I really can't complain at that price point. Now the zoom is a little bit more, but you're getting obviously more functionality out of a zoom lens. So you can certainly agree that the price being more is fair enough. Still half the price of your camera, which is great value for money in my opinion. If you're looking to ramp up your game, Sigma really is the place to go. They have many options for aps-c and for full frame sensors. Hopefully I can bring you some more lens comparisons on the channel. But again, lenses, if budgets are tight, then they are certainly an investment and something you have to really consider. And that's kind of, again, my perspective of where I want to come at this, which is if I'm going to spend my cold hard cash on something, on one or the other, which is going to be, and I want to make the right decision. So like I kind of already mentioned, we will be getting the 50mm. I know that for a fact. 30mm at some point in the future, the price is just so good for it. So it's certainly an option, but the zoom lens is a must, and it may even be the primary lens that I keep on my camera outside of the 16mm. All right, so let me know in the comments which one you think you would like. If you have any questions, I always get back to questions. Test me, I promise you I will. What more can I say? Two fantastic lenses, and one's going to work better for you than the other, but this zoom lens is great and fantastic. Have a great day, guys. Bye.